Hi. Uh, Glad to just record a little bit of teaching, a little bit of facilitation today. It's it's Sunday. I'm here at Le Monastère des Augustines, which is in the old city of Quebec. Here, guiding a 4-day retreat experience that just ended. So I'm taking the time now before we catch the train back to Montreal to share a little bit more about navigating life, about wayfinding, and some poetry and some reflections. And thank you to Robin and to those who are facilitating this experience on Monday night for you in Calgary and different places as well. And some folks joined us last week from I think from Toronto. That's great. Just so you see a little bit of where I am, I'll share my screen and show you some images here of where I'm guiding this experience. It's wonderful. They took really the 17th century monastery. The three sisters came here in 1639, created the first hospital in North America in New France, and that original building had burnt down in a fire, but had been rebuilt in the 18th century. And then some of the vault, the basement where we had our meetings and did our retreat, is the original building going back to the mid 17th century. They took the church and encased it inside this modern architecture here, which is really quite exquisite, and then created a museum here for the Augustinian sisters and telling their story. There are five of them left here, still living on one wing of this wonderful building. So, yeah, I just wanted to share with you a little bit of images. If you ever are in Quebec City and you're looking for a place to stay that's unique and affordable and wonderful, great food, I highly recommend Le Monastère, which is right in the old city, right inside the walls, just below kind of the lowest end of the old city. Okay. Navigating life. Last week, I mentioned some people, and always very aware that any beginning of sharing about traditional open ocean navigating, wayfinding, needs to acknowledge the source. And so I want to name Kaimana and Bonikapia, Vid, his uncle Thomas, Kat, Walter, Linda, and just several other smaller conversations that took place really over the last 15 years and learning on 3 trips to the Hawaiian Islands. Want to especially mention my dear sister, Keahi. And Keahi has been just a real inspiration working with her and traveling with her and my partner Robin together to the Big Island was a real gift just before COVID. Changed all of our lives. So I want to mention Keahi. Last week, I gave kind of the big picture story of what is going on in the Pacific, how over 100 generations or so, a group of people set off into open ocean, found every inhabitable island, traveled as far as South America, where they gathered up sweet potato and then took it all the way back to New Zealand. We know that. We know that it is one language group, one cultural group. It's the largest culture sphere on the planet by far, larger than Russia and China combined. Incredible, mostly 500 parts water to 1 part land. I mean, mostly an aquatic world, water world. And we're traveling vast distances of open ocean, far earlier than any European culture. And doing it without the tools that we're now taking for granted for navigation. Certainly Nothing like we have now with satellites and GPS and computer screens. But even before that, just maps, charts, a magnetic compass, a sextant, a written language. They did it all through and traveled and journeyed and voyaged and found islands, all through a practice of attentiveness and awareness, incredible memory, passing on that knowledge through oral tradition, through chant and song, memorized patterns, observation, really being so alive to sensory information, the complex, billions of pieces of data that come into our awareness all the time, and then making decisions and interpreting the ocean like a language, really hearing the messages out of the waves, out of the coloration in the sky, the bird activity, the other animals, the stars and the moon and the sun, and taking all of that in. And one thing I've deeply appreciated from the navigators that I've had a chance to meet and just spending a bit of time, out on these large catamarans and sitting on board and hearing stories and what is going on in the Pacific is about the rediscovery of traditional practices, kind of a renaissance of wayfinding. But it's really about living. It's about how to make decisions, how to trust my own inner guidance, how to notice what's happening around me in my environment, sensing the wave patterns. Even as I'm speaking to you now, I don't have any notes in front of me. I'm just attuned to the words that want to arise, what feels good to say and speak, and trust the flow and trust the flow and trust the flow. And this intuitive sense of, and what has been something I think I've been aware of mentally, sort of philosophically, I guess, but now I've really sensed it through my body and my heart and my bones, is that we all, I mean, I make these decisions all the time based on an intuitive read. It's not, there's some sort of rational justifications that I can create for things, and maybe certain things kind of make sense to do. But mostly, especially the biggest decisions, they tend to be fairly open to a hunch or a glimpse of something, an inkling, something we can't fully justify to anyone else, never fully explain, but we just make the decision, we just do it. Who we fall in love with, who we commit to, who we're loyal to, what work is meaning for my life, where I live, who I'm called to care for, how do I care for them, how do I make all these decisions. So that's where we're kind of going to go today and tonight here as you're listening to me. Want to create an opportunity for us to get into groups of 3 and to have 2 occasions in breakouts. So I'll try not to fill the space with my own words too much. I'll give you a chance to both have a chance for a bit of solitude, 10 minutes or so, and then a chance to be in a group of 3 and see what happens with that. I mentioned briefly last time that one of the larger shifts I needed to make to try to even begin to understand what's going on with traditional navigation and living a life by a wisdom within and guidance within, what I would call my authentic self or my soul or my heart, or whatever language you want to use for this core primal elemental reality of who I am, the reference point that I'm working from, and his access point to my own wisdom. One of the big shifts I needed to make was perspective. I'm so used to mapping my life, seeing myself in linear movement, going from A to B to C, having goals, objectives, a strategy, a plan, and a checklist, and a sense of milestones and markers. And okay, I got that done, and now I move on to this, and now I need to go and do this next. And it's all kind of laid out and charted. And the traditional navigation doesn't do that. It stays true to the experience in the body, in the senses, in the heart, and noticing the shape of things. And trusting that to be the guidance is how the boat feels, how it's moving. And that is all staying true then to a vision, and not leaving the deck of the boat, not leaving the skin of the ocean, not leaving the body, but so not creating a projection, not creating, a two-dimensional grid system with latitude and longitude, or just seeing my life from above and seeing busy Dan doing all this busy stuff and running around and solving problems and whatever else I see myself as doing. But being in my life, being true to my life, my experience, my senses. So one of the radical insights was from Kaimana. I spent time with him a couple times on the Big Island. The first time he said, Dan, we know the boat is moving and we know we're going from Hawaii to Tahiti. We know we're going on this voyage and we know that the boat will move that way. But when we're actually on the ocean, when we're actually navigating, the boat is stationary. It's pitching and yawing, it's corkscrewing and twisting, it's dancing in the waves, but it's not going anywhere. The islands are in motion around the boat. The home island is fading until it disappears beyond the horizon behind me. Where I'm going, that island I have to remain true to, that dream, that vision, that sense in my body of how the water feels, whether I feel like I'm true to where I want to go. And then I bring the island to the boat. I manifest the island, I conjure it out of the ocean, and it rises in front of me in my imagination, and then eventually in reality, and comes towards us in the boat. Other islands are in motion around us, beside us. Sometimes we're picking up reflection waves from these other islands, and they're helping to guide us. But essentially, we're calm, we're present. And one way to describe this is that the ancient navigators did have a compass. It wasn't a magnetic compass in their hand. The compass was the ocean. The compass was the night sky. The compass was the universe. And the navigator's body, her understanding of herself, the boat was the needle inside the compass that was all encompassing this compass. And all you needed to do was align yourself with what it felt like to move this way and trust the groove, trust the slot, trust that sweet spot that you found yourself in, and just be true to that. And so I'm still in wonder about how to live my life from that perspective, to see the what I'm longing for, what I'm hoping for, my dreams, my vision I'm carrying, future that's coming into reality, and how to bring it towards me, how to see it moving towards me, and to really be centered and grounded and true and honest to myself and authentic, and how to be consistently present, and then to allow whatever it is that's going to appear, and to be humble about that, and yet same time trust my intuitive sense of what it feels like to be in this moment. Okay. So let me share a poem, and then the poem will have a bit of prose and then a bit of reflection. So I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully this will work. And we'll see a little bit of Le Monastère pop up here, I think. There we go. Okay. So I write these microdose poems. I call them twaikus because I write them on Twitter or X. It's been my protest against some of my earlier political life on Twitter, and it just redeemed the social platform for me by doing make it my poetic platform. It also gives me a structure. It gives me a limitation on characters, which is really helpful to me when I write these simple poems. So I'm always looking for one idea or two ideas, and then developing them in a few bits of language, and write them on Twitter and post them on Twitter, and then share them. So this one is, uh, I don't think I even have a name for this one, so I'll just jump into it. Beyond horizon and island sensed, navigators of old, mapless, led to islands in a vast sea. A vision, not seen, a presence, felt by body, muscle rhythm, sway of dance and waves. I too am aware to trust an inkling, a flow, beating heart, blood and bones, a groove, intuitive hope, a longing. Traditional ocean navigators for centuries have relied on a sacred vision as they voyage through storms and turbulent seas. There are no maps or charts to reference. There is only an awareness, a memory, and senses alive to the moment. The vision that guides them is more than just a mental picture or an idea. It is a sensed knowing, experienced in the movement of their bodies as the boat pitches and twists and yawls and bounces through a complex wave pattern. It is dance you just know and you feel is true. As their bodies hold to the underlying matrix of waves, they don't seek the island. The island comes to them. They are centered. Their body is the needle in a vast compass, which is the ocean. They simply hold to the sensory vision as they conjure up the island and bring it to the boat. They stay focused, alert, and in the groove as disturbances and weather cells, darkness, doubts, anxiety, they may distract them over the long distances of a voyage. Okay. So the questions I'd like to offer. What is a vision I'm holding? What's an aspect of it? What's something I can describe about the vision I'm holding? Another way of asking it in simpler language is, what do I sense is over the horizon? What do I sense is there? What island would I like to bring to my boat? So what's the vision? What's the sense of what lies beyond horizon? And what do I want to conjure and manifest? What do I want to bring toward me, attract out of the ocean, but true and authentic to who I am? Okay. So we'll take these questions now into groups of three, into breakouts. In those groups of three, I'd like you to give each person in that group. Well, actually, you know what? Let's do let's do that. Let's do that. Let's go ahead and do 5 minutes each person. So when you get into your groups of three, pause for a moment, consider who wants to go first, second, or third. So to develop an order. once you know who's going in what order, just pause for a moment, give the first person a bit of time. And then when you're ready, the first person will start to share or speak. You can hold some more silence. You don't have to fill every bit of the time with words. But if there are words that are coming in response maybe to this teaching or this poem or these questions, and if you can just begin to flow with whatever the words are, the other two are just going to listen. There's no ping pong conversation, no interaction. Refrain from needing to comment. Just listen to each other and give everybody 5 minutes of devoted time. And then at the end of that 15 minutes or more, when it's complete, just thank each other, but try hard not to drift into just a conversation where maybe advice is going to come up or suggestions or all these different conventional patterns of interacting with one another where we try to match our stories. Just leave it complete for that moment. I do want to also always emphasize confidentiality. So just let it be. Whatever gets spoken in that space stays there. It remains there. It's not repeated. In that way, it keeps the safety and the risk of vulnerability. It's we're more capable then of leaning in and trusting, and that helps us then to be true and honest with ourselves. Okay. So what's the vision I'm holding? What do I sense is out there, maybe calling me, maybe moving towards me, and then what do I want to bring towards me? Okay, very sort of simple reflection on vision, right? And when you come back from that, I'll have another brief teaching here as well, another invitation, because you'll do another reflection with that group of three as well before we're complete tonight. Okay, blessings on that time, and I'm going to just pause the video here. All right, welcome back. I hope that that opportunity being with the two others was helpful, and you were able to explore together the visions, the sensing. What is it that lies over the horizon? What is it that's coming towards me? And I wrote another brief poem I want to share with you about decision making because I got intrigued with what it goes on in a traditional navigation practice and what happens on the boat and what what goes into the guidance and how the adjustments. And Kaimanis said something to me that was very intriguing. He said, we on a traditional navigation, we made up a number and it was 6,000. He said it's a made up number, it's 6,000, but 6,000 decisions every day. He said, you make 6,000 decisions every day of your life, not just on the boat, but all the time, little adjustments. And so I wrote a poem when I received that teaching. I'll share it with you. Let me go ahead and share my screen. So here's the questions that we just explored, right? 6,000 decisions. Wayfinding friend said, navigators make this amount of daily decisions. He made up the actual number. Yet winds shift, sails flutter, rudder adjusts. I once thought life decisions were big. Now I know guidance is sensation, small adjustments, live responses to flow. Right. When I facilitate experiences and bring the navigational learning into it, I I often find it really helpful to to go into a guided meditation, a bit of imagination, to see my life and see your life, not in terms of anything sort of solid, but to sort of really get a sense of the wave action and the fluidity, the dynamic, hydraulic push and pull of life, and to sense also the complex patterns of relationships and of knowing and not knowing, and repression and denial and avoidance and honesty and courage and fear and all of the complex human experience. And just to see it as being in ocean. I have a dear friend, Judy Brown, who's a wonderful poet, and really find her poetry to be very helpful. And I learned so much from her. She's a wonderful elder in my life, and really every chance we get to have a Zoom chat and reflect on life is a gift. And one of her poems I really find helpful, so I want to share that poem with you. It's not about someone in a boat. It's actually even more vulnerable. It's about a swimmer who is in the ocean and swimming in these large waves. Yeah, but it's the same teaching whether you're in a boat or you're swimming out in the ocean. Just the swimming is even more fearful because you just your body's in the water and you don't know what's underneath you. And a lot of people have fears about all the stuff that could come up under you, a shark or whatever. But I found her poem really evocative, really interesting. So I want to share her poem and then some questions from it. So this will be our next triad experience. Will be with our same group and just seeing what happens in that experience of being together. So let me share my screen and I'll share this poem. There we go. Okay. Her poem's called Trough. There is a trough in waves, a low spot where horizon disappears, and only sky and water are our company. And there we lose our way unless we rest, knowing the wave will bring us to its crest again. There we may drown if we let fear hold us within its grip and shake us side to side, leave us flailing, torn, disoriented. But if we rest there, in the trough, are silent, being with the low part of the wave, keeping our energy, noticing the shape of things, the flow, well, then time alone will bring us to another place where we can see horizon, see the land again, regain our sense of where we are and where we need to swim. Judy Brown. So let me back up. I want to read you that poem one more time through. Trough. Trough. There's a trough in waves, a low spot where horizon disappears, and only sky and water are our company. And there we lose our way unless we rest, knowing the wave will bring us to its crest again. There we may drown if we let fear hold us within its grip and shake us side to side, leave us flailing, torn, disoriented. But if we rest there in the trough, are silent, being with the low part of the wave, keeping our energy, noticing the shape of things, the flow, then time alone will bring us to another place where we can see horizon, see the land again, regain our sense of where we are and where we need to swim. So I want to offer these questions in your triads. When has fear held me in its grip? When have I flailed? When have I been at risk of drowning? What has that experience been like? How do I be with the low part, the in between? What is it that helps me regain the sense of where I am? What's the moment of lift, the crest? But what helps me in the trough? What helps me in that moment where only sky and water are my company and I don't know exactly where I am or what's going on around me? What helps me navigate? What helps me sense a direction and guidance? What is it? What can I describe? In your groups of three, too, I want to remind everyone as well about practice that there's a way of being with other people where we actually aren't speaking directly to them. So often we are always in interpersonal exchange and communicating directly to one another. Here, I want to give you an invitation to speak indirectly, to speak with wonder, to speak to a space in between, to speak into the trough, not to speak directly to your other two people, but to just give voice to what you need to hear yourself say. What is it that I'm noticing in response to these questions, this poetry, this teaching today? What is coming up in me that I can describe, but that I need? And maybe it's where it's intersecting life for me, where it's bumping into something, maybe a decision I'm about to make, maybe something new that's coming into view for me. But just I'll speak to that and just trust that the other two will simply be a witness and a presence for me. And again, very simple practice of 5, 5, and 5. So kind of a little bit more than 15 minutes to go through that together. And do make sure that you're keeping time because it is good to be accurate, to be equitable with everybody in the group. Sometimes I know I can certainly go on and on if I'm given the license to do that. So you want to be able to just give everyone a chance. So please honor that as well. And again, you don't have to fill the space with words all the time. It's fine to have some silence, fine to have a bit of time just to really see what words want to be spoken and slow it down a bit. Okay, blessings on that time together. And I'm going to pause the video here again, and then we'll restart it again for the last little very brief teaching that I'd like to do tonight. Thank you. Okay. So this is the very kind of end of our time together. I'm just recording this last little teaching and looking forward, I'll be with you in person at Hillhurst on Monday night next week. I'll be coming off of a 4-day retreat out at Kingsfold and looking forward to that time together. I'm going to bring a more detailed teachings about a couple of practices. I'm going to talk about the 3 waves of traditional navigating, really get more into wave piloting itself, because I think it reveals a lot about how to live through stormy patterns, how to understand the larger underlying structure of the ocean itself, of my life, of being in more of an authentic presence, and then the intriguing invitations that bounce waves provide. So we'll go deeper into wave piloting and kind of imagination. We'll do some guided meditations around that practice. I also want to talk about the tension between tethering ourselves to home island and the question around home, which is a problematic question for many of us. But what does it mean to be tethered to home, to an identity, to something grounding? And then at the same time, holding the vision of where I'm going. So living in this creative tension between the past and the future, between where I've left, where I'm going, the calling, but also the grounding. And I would say between attachment and authenticity, to use the language of Gabor Mate, wonderful teacher and doctor, philosopher. So attachments and authenticity, and the tension between those two, or safety and adventure. Okay, so we'll talk a bit about that next week. And also, I want to talk about path integration, about memory, intuition. And so we'll kind of go into all those different areas when we're together next week. So blessings on the rest of your evening and this week. And I look forward to meeting those who can come in person next week, and also maybe whoever receives this teaching tonight, this bit of invitation to be honor my teachers, honor my mentors, honor those who've come before me. And just to be close tonight, I want to honor one more person. That's my mentor and friend, Parker Palmer. Parker has been a huge impact on my life, and the work I do in the world is all really built on what Parker has provided as a way of being with others, and this kind of collaboration, the Center for Courage and Renewal that I'm part of as well. So I want to honor Parker and the center and the ongoing community of practice that I'm so graced to be a part of. Okay. And blessings on Hillhurst United too, and hosting this. Thanks, Robin. And I look forward to spending some time together next week. Okay, I'm going to close off now.